For he claims that each day this soul becomes more his own, and that of its own will it so chooses, that therefore it cannot justly be snatched from his hands, nor deserve the assistance which it will not accept, that the merits of Christ should not be applied to it, when it spurns them, that it should not benefit from the intercession of the saints, when it entirely forgets them. By these and other pretences, which cannot be all mentioned here, the devil tries to cut short the time of penance for those whom he claims as his own. If he does not succeed in this, he tries to block the way of their justification, and his attempts are successful with many souls. But the protection of God and of the holy angels is wanting to none of us, and thus we are delivered from dangers of death by innumerable ways, and this is so certain that there is scarcely anyone who could not verify it in the course of his life. They furnish us with ceaseless inspirations and warnings. They make us, of all occasions and means, available for our admonishment and exhortation. What is still more valuable, they defend us against the rabid fury of the demons, and set in motion against them all that the intellect of an angel or of a blessed spirit can devise, and all that their power and their most ardent charity can command for our safety. All this is necessary many times for some souls, and at times for all the souls, who have delivered themselves over to the jurisdiction of the demons, and who use their liberty and their faculties only for such temerity. I do not speak of the pagans, the idolaters, and heretics. These, indeed, the angel likewise defend, and inspire to the practice of the moral virtues, which they afterwards use as arguments against the devils. But ordinarily the most they do for them is to protect their lives, in order that God, having allowed them so much time for their conversion, may be justified in his behavior toward them. The angels also labor to prevent them from committing such great sins as the demons incite them to. For the charity of the angels exerts itself, so that at least they may not incur such great punishments as the malice of the demons seeks to fasten upon them. Within the mystical communion of the Church, however, are fought the hardest battles between the angels and the demons, according to the different state of souls. All its members they commonly defend with the ordinary weapons furnished them by the sacramental character impressed upon the soul in baptism, by grace, by virtues, by the performance of good and meritorious works, by devotions to the saints, by the prayers of the just, and by all the good movements Catholics may have during their life. This defence of the just is most powerful, for since they are in grace and friendship of God, the angels obtain a greater right against the demons, and thus they rout them by showing up the holiness and perfection of these souls, which are so formidable to the powers of hell, and therefore this by itself ought to cause us to esteem grace beyond all creation. There are other lukewarm and imperfect souls who fall into sin and occasionally rise again. Against these the demons obtain more power to persecute them with their cruelty, but the holy angels strenuously exert themselves in their defence, so that, as Isaiah tells us, the broken reed may not be crushed, and the smoking flax be not entirely extinguished. There are other souls so unhappy and depraved that during their whole life after their baptism they have not performed one good work, or if they have ever risen from sin, they have returned to it with such eagerness that they seem to have renounced their God, living and acting as if they had no hope of another life, no fear of hell, no repentance for any of their sins. In these souls there is no vitality of grace, no attempt at true virtue, nor have the holy angels any good or available grounds for their defence. The demons cry out, "This soul at least is altogether ours, subject to our commands, and has no part in grace." They point out to the good angels all the sins, wickedness, and vices of such souls, which of their own free will serve such evil masters. What then passes between the angels and the demons is incredible and indescribable, because the demons exert all their fury to prevent such souls from receiving inspirations and helps. As they cannot resist the divine power, they seek at least with all their power to hinder them from attending or yielding to the call of heaven. With such souls, ordinarily it happens that whenever God himself, or through his holy angels, sends them a holy inspiration or movement, these demons must first be put to flight, and the soul snatched from their midst, lest these birds of prey immediately pounce upon and destroy the holy seed. This defence the angels usually conduct with the words which I have quoted above. Who is like unto God that dwells on high? Who like Christ at the right hand of the eternal Father? Who is like to the most holy Mary? Together with other sayings, before which the infernal dragons take flight. Sometimes they are thereby hurled back into hell, although, not abating in their fury, they again return to the conflict. The hellish foes also strive with all their force to induce men to multiply their sins, in order that the measure of their sins may so much the sooner be complete, and their time of penance and of life may come to an end, for then the demons would be enabled to carry them off to eternal torments. But the angels, who are rejoiced by the repentance of sinners, even though they may not be able to bring them to repentance, labor diligently to do away with occasions of sin, and to lessen the number of sins or prevent them altogether. And when, with all their efforts, unknown to mortals, they cannot bring back the souls from sin, they resort to the intercession of the most holy Mother of God, asking her to be their mediatrix with the Lord, and lend her aid in confounding the demons. In order to move her merciful kindness the sooner, they induce the souls of sinners to practice some special devotion, or perform some service in honor of the great Lady. Although it is true that all good works performed in the state of sin are dead and very weak weapons against the devil, yet they always retain some remote appropriateness on account of the good end in view, and thus the sinner is less indisposed towards grace than without them. Moreover, these good works, when presented by the angels, and especially by the Heavenly Mother, possess in the eyes of the Lord a certain life, or the resemblance of it, altogether different from that given to them by the sinners, and therefore, though he does not bind himself to respond to them, he nevertheless does it on account of the one so asking. In these different ways, an infinite number of souls come out of their sinful ways, and are snatched from the claws of the dragon. And as there are innumerable souls who fall into such a dreadful state that they need a powerful aid, the most holy Queen interposes hers whenever the angels fail in their defense. The demons are fiercely tormented by their own fury whenever they perceive any sinner calling upon or remembering his Queen, since they know by experience how kindly she receives sinners, and how readily she makes their cause her own. Without hope or spirit of resistance, the devils immediately give themselves up as foiled and vanquished. It often happens, when God desires to bring about some special conversion, that the great Queen herself peremptorily commands the demons to withdraw from that soul and sink into the abyss, and her commands are always obeyed. At other times, without such peremptory orders, God permits them to see the mysteries, the power, and holiness of his Mother, and this new knowledge, filling them with consternation and confusion, puts them to flight. If the souls respond and cooperate with the grace obtained for them by the Heavenly Sovereign, they are freed from the attacks of the demons. Yet though the intercession of the great Queen and her power is so formidable to the devils, and though the Most High confers no favour upon the Church or upon the souls without her, there are nevertheless many occasions in which the humanity of the incarnate Word itself battles for us and defends us against Lucifer, declaring himself openly with his Mother in our favour, and annihilating and vanquishing the demons. So great is his love for men, and for all that pertains to their welfare, that this happens not only when the demons are made to feel directly the virtues of Christ and his merits through the operation of the sacraments in the souls, but also when, in other miraculous conversions, he fills them with particular knowledge of one or more mysteries to their confusion and rout. Of such a kind was the conversion of St. Paul, of Mary Magdalene, and other saints, or whenever it is necessary to protect some Catholic kingdom, or the Church, from the treachery and malice of hell for their destruction. On such occasions, not only his sacred humanity, but even the infinite divinity, armed with the omnipotence of the Father, advances upon the demoniacal hosts, filling them in the above-mentioned manner with a knowledge of the mysteries and of his omnipotence, by which he overwhelms them and forestalls them in their real or intended conquests. Whenever the Lord thus interposes such powerful aid, the whole infernal reign of confusion is terrorized and stricken down into the hellish abysses for many days, giving forth howls of mournful despair, and totally unable to move from their places until the Lord again gives them permission to rise. But as soon as they receive permission, they issue forth with their former fury for the ruin of souls. Although it may not seem in harmony with their pride and arrogance to enter into a new contest with the one by whom they have been overthrown and vanquished, nevertheless their jealous fear lest we come to the enjoyment of God, and their furious desire to prevent it, again prevail and urge them to continue their persecutions to the end of our lives. I was made to understand that if God were not so outrageously misused in his mercy, he would often interpose, even miraculously, his divine omnipotence in our behalf. Especially would he do this in defense of the mystical body of the Church, and of some Catholic governments, bringing to naught the counsels of hell for the destruction of Christianity in our times. We do not merit this protection of the infinite power, because all are united in rousing the divine wrath, and the whole world has joined hands with the infernal fiends, into whose power it has fallen on account of the blind and insane pursuit of evil rampant among men. In the conversion of St. Paul, this assistance of the Most High is openly manifest, for he had set him apart even in the womb of his mother, and chosen him as an apostle and as a vase of election. Although his life before the persecution of the Church was a series of events which deceived the demons, just as he is deceived in many other souls, yet God watched him from the moment of his conception, and regulated his natural character and the care of the angels in his defense and protection. Hence the hatred of the devil and their desire of causing his death in the first years of his life increased. As they failed in this, and as they later saw him become a persecutor of the Church, they were solicitous to preserve his life. When the holy angels found themselves powerless to withdraw Paul from the error to which he had entirely dedicated himself, the powerful queen entered the combat and made his cause her own. Through her, Christ and the Eternal Father interposed his divine assistance and snatched him from the grasp of the dragon. In one instant, at the apparition of the Lord, all the demons that accompanied St. Paul on the way to Damascus were hurled to the abyss. On that occasion, Lucifer and his cohorts felt the lash of the divine omnipotence. Filled with fear and consternation, they for some days lay lifeless in the depths of the infernal caverns. But as soon as the Lord took away from their minds the remembrance of the divine mysteries, they began to breathe forth new wrath.